This is one of our destinations today. On day 2 of our backpacking trip in the Uintah Mountains, we actually did a loop hike around to this waterfall, and we'll proceed to go back. Join us as we explore and discover all the gems on this hike.
At Hidden Gems of Nature, I don't tell you what the destination is. Instead, I give you clues so you can explore and discover these hidden gems or your own hidden gems. So watch carefully as we identify clues to find these destinations. And remember, subscribe to Hidden Gems of Nature YouTube channel.
Welcome to Hidden Gems of Nature. I'm driving with my youngest son Noah up into the Uintah Mountains. We're on Highway 150 headed east out of Camas, Utah. Highway 150 goes up and over the Uintah Mountains and drops down into Evanston, Wyoming. The road clears a couple of saddles on the way. We'll actually cross one of those saddles before we get to our trailhead. This is the first summit that we're passing right here. We'll take a pan back behind us so you can see the terrain that we just came up through to cross the summit, and then we'll turn here and head back down into the basin and over to the next summit. This is actually the top of the second summit, but this is where we turn off and into our trailhead. There's a number of trails that come off this trailhead and a number of lakes in this area. Welcome to Hidden Gems of Nature. We're in the parking lot. I'll pan around so you can see the parking lot, see where we're at. Pretty sizable parking lot. There's actually a couple of other parking lots, one for horses and one for more cars. We'll take some great shots of some of the beauties and gems on this hike. This is the trailhead, and we're off down the trail. We're up high, starting our elevation at about 10,500 feet. We'll drop to 10,000 feet and then go back up again to about 10,500. Most of the lakes sit over 11,000 feet. So we've only gone down the trail about a half mile. You come to a Y in the trail. It's right here. It's actually a backwards Y. You're coming off one of the arms, and if you're not paying attention, you'll completely miss it, which is fine because you're not going to turn on it. Just keep heading straight down the trail, and you can see Noah there in the background, so you know which direction to go. We could hear some water as we were hiking down the trail and turned to the left and found this meadow. Beautiful little meadow alongside of the trail. There'll be several of these along the hike. Stop and enjoy these gems as you hike to your destination. Just come around the corner, found this little bridge. It's pretty, this little stream. Running through this meadow. We'll have a lot of these along the trail. I'm assuming. I haven't been down here in 49 years. Last time I came in here I was 12 years old. Now you know how old I am. Rained last night. A hurricane off the west coast of the United States, and sent a lot of moisture up into the Arizona and Utah and the greater southwest area. You got a couple of big storms coming through. Just absolutely beautiful meadows, streams, waterfalls, gorgeous hike. Look at that spectacular view of those mountains just behind it. You should get some great views on this hike as well. As you can see behind me, we're in a burn area. Burned out of here 3, 4, 5 years ago, from what I understand. You can also see a lot of green undergrowth, a lot of grass back in here, starting to grab hold. And in fact, right behind me is a small stream. It's just trickling down the side of the mountain. I'm going to pan around so you can see that right below that stream just flows right into that lake. We'll pass 2 or 3 of these before we get to the basin that we're headed to. So some more great views and gems along this trail as you hike in the Uintah Mountains. Although this burn area was pretty devastated, we do get some pretty incredible views that we wouldn't get otherwise. So I'm going to pan around so you can see all the ridges and mountain peaks that surround this
high basin. Most of these peaks are well over 12,000 feet. The tallest peak that we'll be camped under is 12,400.
As you can see behind me, we've gotten out of the burn area and we're now in a pretty lush area. In fact, it's very wet. There's a boardwalk here. It's probably about 40 yards long. You can probably see the boardwalk behind me as I hike. It's gorgeous through here. It's thick forest almost this whole hike. Had it not been for that burnout area, this is what we'd be hiking through the entire time. Pretty dense conifer forest. It's gorgeous up here in these mountains. Enjoy yourself as you hike along and find all these gems like this one in the Uintah Mountains. So we've come to another fork in the trail. We're probably 4.5 miles in. We can keep going straight down this trail. It's kind of the main highway through the Uintah Mountains. We can turn and go up to the basin. We're going to head down, and that's what we're going to do.
This spot basically designates where the basin begins, and the loop hike as well. We can take a left here and go around the west side of the basin, take a right, go around the east side of the basin. At this lower part of the basin, which is about 10,500 feet, there's 3, 4, 5 lakes, and then up higher there's 6 or 7 that sit at just over 11,000. Regardless of which direction you go, you're greeted by this gorgeous meadow with the stream flowing through it, and you know the stream is full of a bunch of little trout. It's just a gorgeous setting here as you start into this basin where we'll be camping. This lake is not a named lake. I think it's more of a meadow than a lake. In fact, there's quite a bit of moose sign around this lake, so evidently there's some moose up in this area, but this is also a gorgeous meadow before we head up to some of the other lakes on the loop.
This is our destination, the lake we're going to camp at the first night. We're going to camp both nights here.
This is the view from our campsite as we look across a section of the lake over towards a waterfall. Kind of zoom in on the waterfall. You can hear it echoing across the lake all day long.
Morning, this is day 2 of our trip into the high Uintas. As you can see, there's actually a lot of blue sky, but it rained all night long. Fortunately, we're dry. A lot of mist on the lake this morning. It's a beautiful morning up here.
This is our campsite right next to the lake. It's a beautiful little campsite. Noah's making a little breakfast for us this morning. Looks like we're having pancakes.
McAllen, here's your fry pan at work again, but we're having square pancakes because I dumped the batter.
We did regroup and make a couple of round ones. Noah and I decided to do a little fishing after breakfast, let some of our gear dry out before we headed on the loop hike. And here's a couple of the fish that we caught and released. It's a good lake to fish on. Evidently, this area is pretty popular for pack trains. This one came in before we went on our loop hike. Throughout the day, and the next morning we had another 3 or 4 that came into the area. Not just pack trains coming through, but we also had a little wildlife come right through our camp. We had this deer come through this morning.
Today we're actually going to do a loop hike and go by another 6 or 8 lakes on that loop hike. We're going to climb up on the cliff behind you. Several of the lakes are up on that cliff. There's more waterfalls, meadows, rock formations, all kinds of gorgeous gems along this trail in the Uintah Mountains. Join us as we explore and discover these gems on day 2 of our trip in the Uintah Mountains.
As we hike up this trail to the shelf, You can see the views that we'll have all day. In fact, the vistas and the views will be spectacular from this shelf. That's one of the highlights of this hike. You can also see the lake that we're camped on down below us. Our camp happens to be on the opposite side of the lake. Once you get up on top, there's really no trails until you get down to some of the lakes, and even the lakes don't all have trails around them. Because the terrain up high is also shelved, you kind of have to peek up over each shelf before you can look down in to see if there's any lakes around. So we cross-countryed a little while before we got into these first lakes. They're all relatively close, so you don't have to go very far to find them. There's no trails up here between the lakes, so Noah, as you can see, is just cross-countrying over to our next lake. You've probably also noticed how barren and void of trees it is up here. Although there's a lot of ground cover, the forest rangers told us that because it's so windy and the snows are so deep, the winters are so harsh, you just don't get a lot of trees up in this area.
Again, there's no trail, and then all of a sudden, I don't know if you can see this, but no trail, and then all of a sudden there's a trail. So we'll be back on a trail after cross-country into the last two lakes. We went up over the ridge and dropped into our third lake. It's a beautiful lake. And down right below the lake, the stream flowing out on this side has an outlet and a little spillway pond. This is one of our destinations today as we took this hike in this basin. Just a loop hike. We've come almost to the end of the hike. There's one more lake right down below us. We've already hiked to four different lakes and skipped another one that we just couldn't find because there was no trail to it, and I guess my cross-country skills were getting a little rusty. But just a gorgeous waterfall. We're just below a turquoise lake. And then right down below me are these two lakes. I'm going to flip this camera around so you can see the lakes down below me. As we've hiked this basin to see all the lakes, this is the last two lakes that we'll hit. And then after we hit these lakes, we'll drop down into a long meadow and back into the lake where we started the hike from. This is an incredible view. In fact, I'll have Noah kind of pan so you can see all the way across. It's just absolutely beautiful views on this entire hike today. We've got this fall that I'm standing right next to, and then up above it, more of the same fall. This is the final lake on our loop hike today. Beautiful lake. It's actually two lakes connected together with a small stream. I hope you've enjoyed all the views that we've enjoyed today on this loop hike in the Uintah Mountains.
Welcome to day 3 of our backpacking trip in the Uintah Mountains. Sun's just coming up over the mountain, as you can see the mountain in the back with the sun just beaming on it. It's a gorgeous morning. There's frost on everything. Lake's like glass.
Day 3, it's our farewell to the lake. One last shot before we head back to the trailhead. On the hike in, we parallel this meadow. It's a very picturesque meadow. It's long and thin, goes right up against a cliff on one side, has a stream meandering through it. It's really beautiful. I'll try and pan around slowly so that you can get a view of it as we hike out. There you can see some of the cliffs behind us. Meadow butts right up against it, and then down to the head of the meadow where the stream starts cascading off the hills behind us or the mountains behind us.